These are my three people: Gracie, Jamie, and Lindsay. Just wait until you get home. You're so stupid. You're so ugly and fat. How can you stand to look at yourself in the mirror? You'll never make it on your own without me. It's your fault I do these things to you. You think it was bad? Just wait till the next time, it'll be even worse. These are all different forms of domestic abuse and violence. Abuse can be obvious. It can leave bruises on our flesh. However, abuse can also be subtle. It can be subtle to our neighbor and to others around us who can't see the mental anguish and fear that we are feeling and going through inside. The National Coalition Against Domestic Violence and Abuse did a study. Just in the United States alone, an average of 20 people experience intimate partner, physical or mental violence or abuse every minute, and that's just in the United States today. This equates to more than 10 million abuse victims annually. Have you or someone else that you've known or know currently have been in a physical violence or abuse relationship? My name's Jewel Howard, and you are not alone if you have witnessed this or if you're currently going through an abusive relationship right now. I'm educated to speak on behalf because I have been a victim of domestic abuse and violence. I have also been an advocate for those who can call into a call center asking for help. I have also witnessed friends and family who have also been in abuse relationships. And I've also done extensive research on why this happens, the cycles that people go through, and why they do not get out of these abusive relationships. But what is domestic abuse? The Webster Dictionary defines domestic violence and abuse as the inflicting of physical injury by one family or household member on another. It's a repeated and habitual pattern of such behavior. But did you know there's actually 5 primary types of physical abuse and violence? Number 1, which is the one that most people technically define domestic abuse and violence as, is physical abuse. When they think of physical abuse and domestic violence, they think of this specific primary one, which is any form of physical abuse and contact inflicted on another human being by one individual, the abuser. This can constitute as punching, biting, kicking, shoving, grabbing, choking, hitting, and so many more. The second primary phase is the sexual abuse, which is any type or form of unwanted sexual behavior or conduct inflicted on another without that person's consent. This can be rape, it can be fondling, sexual harassment, and even making another individual forced into having an abortion. The third is emotional abuse, which is any type of criticism and attack through any form of language or words. Some of these I gave you in the beginning of my speech when I opened up, but other ways are through control tactics, belittling, humiliating, shaming, criticizing, name-calling, and profanity. And in one term that we constantly think of whenever we think of emotional abuse is called gaslighting. Gaslighting is a term that is defined as an abuser making a victim feel like they have lost their sanity and making them feel like they're crazy for going through these abusive cases. Another one is psychological abuse, when the abuser inflicts fear onto another by a form of intimidation or isolation from friends and family. They threaten to harm their loved ones, they threaten to harm their pets, they even threaten to harm themselves through suicide if the victim leaves them. And the lastly is financial or economic abuse. This is when the abuser controls their financial spending patterns and their finances currently. They even can push you into fraudulent activities that can lead you to jail. After hearing the 5 primary domestic violence and abuse types, maybe a memory's popped up in your mind, reminding you of a situation that you've been through, not even knowing that that was a part of domestic violence or abuse. Or maybe you've witnessed someone else going through it. There's actually 3 to 4 typical cycles that an abuser goes through. One is the tension building phase, which is common when it starts with an argument, and those arguments usually are inflicted by the topic of a job, children, or money. Then the acute battering phase happens, which is where inflicted fear from the abuser goes on to the victim, where the victim knows that the attacker is going to attack, and this is where the pattern of living on eggshells comes from. The third phase is after the abuser has attacked the victim, and this is where the attacker or the abuser says, "I'm so sorry, and this will not happen again," and makes promises, and the cycle continues over and over and becomes a repetitive cycle unless the victim finally makes the choice to leave. Most tend to think that domestic violence only happens to women. While women are the leading victims in domestic violence and abuse, 1 in 4 women actually are the abused. 1 in 9 men are actually also abused. It just goes to show that all men, women, anyone of any age, children, any race or ethnicity can be abused and a part of a domestic violence and abuse case. The Domestic Violence Roundtable article from the 2008 showed that 3 and 4 million children between the ages of 3 and 17 years of age are at risk at exposure of just seeing, hearing, or being a part of domestic violence and abuse as well. Today, I informed you of different types of domestic violence and abuse, which are physical, sexual, psychological, emotional, and financial. I also informed you of the different types of cycles that an abuser and victim go through during their domestic violence abuse, which is tension building phase, the acute battering episode, and the honeymoon phase. And I explained to you today that men, women, children of all ages, races, and genders, and ethnicities can also be victims to this. If you or someone else that you know has been a victim to one of the 5 types of domestic violence and abuse that I have informed you of today, please remember you are not alone, and you can get help, and you can also help someone today. Call the National Domestic Violence Hotline number and get help today, or help someone else.